Good afternoon. This is Daniel Stern from the Bible Instruction Ministry. I'm here broadcasting from our office in Jerusalem, and eventually, in a few moments, I'm going to try to shed some light on how this event that started on Saturday morning transpired, on why the lack of response was what it was, on where the army was, on all kinds of different questions, on the barrier fences, and some more stuff. I promised you earlier that I would make this video, and I'm now ready to deliver. But before we go in there, I'd like to ask if any of you have any questions, any thoughts, any messages to pass along, to have answered, to pass to soldiers, anything in particular. As we all know, on Saturday, about 55 hours ago, the Hamas started a war with Israel, which is still ongoing and will continue for a while longer. And our reserves have been called up, and the main question on everyone's mind is how we reached this point. How, it's those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. We see that the Great Wall of China did not hold back the Mongols, and the Maginot Line did not hold back the Axis powers of Nazi Germany, and the Bar-Lev Line did not hold back the Egyptians in 1967 from crossing the Suez Canal, and stable, permanent defense lines are not invulnerable and are not what we need to lean on. And speaking of what needs to be leaned on, there is a Arab phrase here in the Middle East, which is, you don't lean on a wall that is not sturdy. And unfortunately, from the geopolitical perspective, this event, this war, which is far from over, is very much makes Israel a unstable wall for our Sunni Arab allies and potential allies. But we'll get to that later. All right, I guess it's time to start. So, as you all know, or if you don't, then I'm here to share with you. On Saturday morning, Hamas militants started a war with Israel, and we all asked how it happened. So, first of all, I'd like to say that this war has been planned for over a year by the Hamas. It is not spontaneous. They've already said that they've been planning this for over a year. There is high indication that Iran is involved in the planning as well, and I will also raise a suspicion regarding the execution as well. But for the last few years, since 2006 in fact, we have been gotten used to to the Hamas trickle-in missiles, and every year or two having a much larger series of missiles trickled down, shot down, not trickled. I'm being distracted by my colleague here. I might have an important break-in news to share.
Yes.
Okay. I've been asked by my colleague to ask you in the audience if any of you are coming to Israel soon, to please let us know, because there's equipment that is needed, tactical gear, that is difficult to come by here in Israel. All the suppliers are running out. For the last 2 days, here at Netivyah, we've been searching for Kevlar vests and helmets and other equipment that are hard to come by to provide for the soldiers that don't have it, even in very good units. That's what I need, Shmuel. Thank you for asking. Please let me know in the comments if people are coming to Israel, or email me directly at daniel@netivyah.org. Anyways, sorry. Back to what we were talking about. So, up to now, for the last 16 years, the Hamas has been firing mortars and missiles. And Israel, Israeli civilians, Israeli soldiers, what they do when that happens, obviously, is they go into bomb shelters. They hunker down. They get behind concrete slabs. And the Iron Dome missile defense system has also been implemented to assist in dealing with those missiles. So, what happened here? On Saturday morning, a very large barrage of missiles was fired, and the Israeli civilians and army personnel in all around the Gaza Strip hunkered down in their bomb shelters. And then here's where things diversified. The Hamas sent out over 1,000 commandos, mostly by the ground, breaking 22 holes in the barrier fence, but also through the air with paragliders, and also through the sea on rubber boats. Additionally, and then one would say, well, what happened to the vaunted technological systems that should have stopped them? Well, snipers and drones dropping bombs neutralized the systems. There's videos of it taking place. It's very unfortunate to see that such a simple solution can neutralize this very high-tech, very expensive gear that we have come to rely on. Then, following that, the hundreds of and the thousands commandos, hundreds in different units, attacked several locations, 5 army bases and 22 settlements in groups of between 25 and 50. The army base, the main army base, which is the command and control base of the Gaza Strip and the area around in Re'im, was overwhelmed without... I am now moving into the field of speculation. I suspect from the pictures that I've seen that the majority of the soldiers who were slaughtered in that base were slaughtered in their sleep or within moments of being made aware of an attack, which raises the question why the alarms were not sounded. And to that, I suspect, again, speculation, this has been denied by the army, but I still suspect that electronic warfare might have been involved, whether Iranian in origin or not. Could be that I'm wrong, and it was just people taking for granted the situation. But I've seen, unfortunately, very bloody, very traumatic pictures of soldiers massacred in their boxers, in their sleeping clothes. It's very sad, and it indicates that the alarms were not sounded. That command and control base is the one that is responsible for coordinating all the defense, all the attacks, all the communication in between not only the army forces, but also the what's called the preparation classes, the groups of civilian defense organizations that each settlement has. Now, during this period, when the missiles were flying and all the Israeli forces were hunkered down in their bunkers, and civilians, then 1,000 commandos from Gaza came over with motorcycles, with pickup trucks, with bicycles, and basically entered 22 settlements by the dozens and started killing everyone and anyone that they saw, including civilians, elderly, women, children, going door to door to every house and trying to kill everyone that they could. Once they'd been doing that, then none of the forces there could oppose them, as they were in larger numbers and much better armed, with RPGs, with assault rifles. Unfortunately, I mentioned the preparation classes, the civilian groups that are trained and whose duty it is to protect the settlements. Unfortunately, over the last few years, they have been relatively disarmed. The army collected their weapons in an attempt to stop illegal arms sales, and they have been relatively disarmed. And obviously that is something that will have to be looked into in the future as well. Although everything I'm telling you now are things that there better be an account for in the future. In any case. And once there were dozens of terrorists in the street in each settlement, as I say, these individuals coming out of their bomb shelters with sidearms only, not organized as a group, had a very difficult time, and many fell. Additionally, there was a nature party, like a Woodstock, music, drugs, rock and roll, whatever, a nature party of young Israelis and tourists celebrating very near to that command and control base that I mentioned earlier, that supposedly had over 3,000 participants. It was one of the first targets. The Hamas militants drove in there with their vehicles and started spraying bullets everywhere. And as people escaped, they escaped only to find that there were more Hamas militants waiting for them, killing them as well. Hundreds were killed. From that party, as well as from the settlements, over 150 have been taken prisoner into Gaza, including elderly, including their caregivers, including women, including children, but we'll talk about that later. So, after the command and control base was taken, and additional bases and settlements were taken, one might ask, where was the rest of the army? Where were the soldiers? So, the Gaza border is 70 kilometers long. That's about 50 miles. And most of it is not manned constantly, because Israel's army of 170,000 active soldiers has to be spread all over the country. Has to be in the West Bank, has to be in the northern front. And of those 170,000 active soldiers, remember that a large percent is logistics and support and intelligence and so on. So, what has happened is that there are small units in the range of 20 to 40 soldiers manning outposts, and those outposts were overwhelmed. As of a few days ago, there were 5 tanks that were captured and 15 armored vehicles, track vehicles, that were captured as well and taken to Gaza. The tanks, I don't think they'll have much use for, but of course there's very high-level technology that probably will be reverse engineered, so that's not good either. But anyways, from a strategic point of view for Israel, practically losing the tanks is not too significant a blow, because we have many more, but more for morale and for technology, it's a big hit. Anyways, just to clarify, the Hamas militants, there are estimated between 25 and 40,000 of them. So it's not just a gang of thugs. Up until Saturday morning, Israel treated the Hamas as a relatively dysfunctional, not dangerous group. But they certainly have shown us that they are very, very dangerous. What else? So, what happened? The Hamas militants advanced 22 kilometers into Israel up until the city of Ofakim, a city of 34,000 people, where in all the area that they entered, the 22 settlements, the city of Shderot, 30,000 people, they basically murdered as many people as possible. I want to add that it was recently discovered that among dead and captured Hamas commandos, maps of the cities of Shderot with pinpoints on synagogues, on wedding halls, and on other places where people gather. This was planned and intentional. They were planned and well prepared with maps of a city 22 kilometers into Israel. Since that initial stage, and even until today, 55 hours later, there are still battles raging. The IDF has not yet recaptured all the land. Much of it has been recaptured, but not all of it. Some of it there are still battles raging. There are still new infiltration attempts. There are new infiltration attempts. There is restocking of ammunition from the Gaza Strip until the territories that they captured. I want to add and point out that when they captured these territories, they came with journalists embedded with them. Additionally, beyond the 1,000 commandos, thousands more of rioters came. I have to go back and say one more thing. You might ask why they weren't shot immediately when they made holes in the fences. Over the last few years, they have been making riots in the fences and around the fences, making damage in the fences, and we've been lulled into a false sense of compliance and of unresponsiveness to supposedly just small events that don't require a strong response. And that's why, part of the reason why this happened. And it's happening in the West Bank as well. There's every day hundreds of Arab workers who just want to make a living and just want to support their family are climbing over the security fences where cabs are waiting for them and driving them to work. Of course, I feel sorry that the situation is one that they feel required to do that, but from a security point of view, it's a catastrophe waiting to happen. Of course, additionally, there is the matter of Hezbollah in the north, which is, of course, the big question is if, when, how they will join this. They've already said that if we try to attack Gaza, they will join. And obviously, all of this is initiated by Iran, who I already said trained and helped plan this attack. And I suspect also might have helped with cyber and technological warfare to cripple our command and control center at the start of the event. Though, once, like I said, that might be wrong. Before I continue, and I do have a little more to say, I'd like to know if anyone has any questions, any comments, any thoughts. I'm going to continue a little more while you think of your questions, comments, and thoughts, just so there isn't an awkward silence. But I will tell you that we at Netivyah are looking to get tactical gear for multiple units. I've been in contact personally with sergeants from different units who require gear, drones, headlamps, flashlights, but even simple things like deodorants, socks, underwear, and we're looking to support the soldiers in any way that we can. I want to mention that one of the reasons that I suspected Saturday morning when I heard of this terrible tragedy, one of the reasons that I suspected it happened was that the Saudi Arabia and Israel are getting much closer in an alliance that would be anti-Iran, and Iran was not happy about that. And this, of course, comes as progress and continuation of the Abraham Accords that Israel made peace with many of its neighboring countries. And this event puts a halt to the progress of that peace accords. This event will unfortunately involve the deaths of many Palestinians, and consequently it will be much more difficult for Arab countries to not condemn Israel and to advance peace accords with Israel. In any case, additionally, there is, of course, the larger picture of Russia, China, North Korea, Iran, that are all interested in different things in the world from a geopolitics perspective. China is very happy to have the U.S., especially its naval forces, like the USS, I believe, Roosevelt, which, I apologize to my American friends, I don't remember the name of the aircraft carrier that is right now on its way to the shores of Israel. And China is very glad to have the U.S. focus its naval power elsewhere than the South China Sea and the Straits of Taiwan, even though I do understand that it's different navies, and this is a CENTCOM, and the others would be other navies. And of course, Russia is happy to have the world focus on the Middle East and not on the Ukraine. But once again, we're going into the world of speculation and unknown. So let's leave that aside and go back to the actual information. Currently, there are still infiltrations. There are still attempts to recapture territory, and this will continue, and then it will move on to a new stage, the stage of how do we change the Middle East, how do we change the dynamic, the equilibrium between Israel and Gaza, because no one can live anywhere near Gaza after an event like this unless something is different. So, with this, I think I'd like to, unless there are questions and answers, which I don't yet see, I'd like to remind you to please share and support Israel. Support us by sharing this. Share this with your friends. Share this with anyone who loves Israel. God bless you all. Shalom.